Alright, so this is my reflection of my interview with Mr. Brent Maybe. To start off, overall, I had a great time doing this interview and learning about Mr. Maybe. I felt like it went very smoothly, the conversation flowed, and I got to really see who he was, his own personal side, and had some good insight into management. I felt like I did a great job of keeping it professional while also allowing him to be himself and open up to be himself. I provided a good area for him to really show who he truly was. My interview was through a FaceTime call, so just technology in general made this the most challenging part, and finding a quiet place with good connection to set it up. I really enjoyed just hearing what he had to say, building an actual genuine human connection with him. My dad has always spoken about him, so putting a face to the name and building an actual relationship was really neat. The only thing I would do differently would be to communicate better with him prior to the interview. I originally planned to do the interview on Zoom, but he was slightly older, didn't really understand Zoom, and wasn't a fan of having his face shown on Zoom, so we worked around it though and made it happen. But if I was to start over, I would be better with communication from the start. And so I found communicating with Mr. Maybe, it was very easy and it flowed well once we got into the interview. I partially pride myself on my people and communicating skills. So I think just me being myself and not trying to act different helped and allowed him to replicate that. As far as specific communication skills are concerned, I did my best to show I was engaged and actively listening. It is harder on a FaceTime to do that, but I feel like just making eye contact and showing that you're not constantly moving around and looking around helps. I also try to listen more than speaking, giving him the floor to share his thoughts and ideas, because at the end of the day, he's the one being interviewed. I feel like too many times you see interviewers try and talk too much and try to kind of steal the show, make it about themselves, but I feel like you got to really provide a space. You ask good questions and you allow for the person being interviewed to speak and really show who they are and what about themselves that they want to share. As far as communication barriers, the only two things I can think of is the virtual type of interview. I already explained how I sort of overcame that and started a great interview, but it does definitely change the interview and doesn't make it as good as one of those in-person type of interviews. I feel like in-person interviews, you really get a full experience of being an interviewer and hearing about that person. The only other thing I would say is occasionally I would be trying to find the right time to ask the right questions, but also didn't want a lot of awkward, quiet time with no one talking. So I think maybe once I was talking a little longer than I wanted to find the right question for the conversation flow. I think in that case, I wanted to just already start preparing for the next question as they're answering the one that I just asked previously. I feel like this comes with doing more interviews. I feel like you get better as the flow of the conversations of an interview as you interview more people. But yeah, I feel like there was a couple times where I didn't have my next question prepared as much because I was trying to listen so much to what he was saying. But then there would be a couple seconds awkward silence that I'd like to cancel out if I was to do an interview again. As far as learning experience, some key takeaways I took from the interview is realizing how much of being a manager has two aspects of managing the work getting done while also managing the people doing the work. There's it's a balance between the people versus the work, that you're managing both of that. It's more like a team atmosphere where Brent, being the manager, looks out for others and they also look out for him. So it's he kind of has it where it's he's not the overhead boss where he's just plowing down all of these rules and work on his employees. He likes having them come to him and provide feedback to him so they both can get better as they're working through their jobs. It's like a team, like he said. And I think the biggest piece of information I took from the interview is that he looks at his job more as leadership compared to management. Yes, his title is a manager, but he looks at it more as being a leader. Everyone can be a leader, and he likes to try and place workers in spots where they can be successful and also grow as leaders. A lot of his job is building a genuine relationship with his employees and being there for them when they need it, as they are human too. Something he does that I really like is he praises the people in public and then corrects and criticizes them in private, professionally obviously. He's never putting people down in public because that's just a bad look. No one likes to be criticized in general, so when you're doing it in public in front of others, that's only going to make it worse. He likes to praise the people with everything they're doing good in public around others. And then when he does have that private time, one-on-ones, he would go and do private talks to show what they need, what he needs specifically out of them for them to be the best they can be. And he keeps it very professional during those times because, like I said, people don't like criticism, so he tries to make it in the nicest way possible. But that's where having those genuine relationships, people are going to listen to you more and really take that criticism if they really know who you are and that you really mean the best for them. And one last huge piece I took away from this interview is that if someone isn't working up to their normal standards, like workplace deviance, it's likely that something isn't going well in their own personal life. Like, we forget that, like, obviously you think of that, like, as kids, like, oh, someone's bullying someone, oh, they probably have a tough at-home life, but, like, if someone's not living up to their standards as an adult, too, they could still be going through stuff at home, if not more stuff. Like, I feel like that's not looked at as much as you're an adult. You're just supposed to handle everything and separate work and personal life, but it is tough as we get older to do that still. And this is where having that real connection, like I said, that he tries to build with all of his employees makes it easier to just get that person the help they need and get them back to where they need to be at and to work up to their standards. As far as course application, I saw that having a balance between technical and human skills matched up really well with what we learned in class and to what Brent talked about in the interview. And both are needed for success, and it needs to be a balance so your employees feel valued but also know that the skills they need to complete the job. The leadership unit we talked about in class as well matched up very well with what Brent talked about as far as leadership styles, everybody having their own style, and as well as putting people in leadership roles and watching them grow with that. Innovation and change also matched up pretty well too. Spoke about technology and how that's changed and how that changes his job as technology advances. We talked about AI a lot, which they're using a lot to make, not necessarily just do the work for them, but to make certain aspects of their job easier or different, and it saves time and allows them to spend that time and effort on other stuff that they may have not been able to do 5 years ago or something like that. That was pretty interesting to learn about. And one thing that was slightly different from what we learned in class was like reacting to trends and determining how to make like a maximum profit or like with certain decision making. The interview was slightly different as yes, the money matters. Like with Brent, the money matters at this job, but at the same time, that's not really the goal. The goal is to keep the troops safe of the United States and make sure they get back home safely. And this is where ethical decision making does match up with what we learned about in class. Spending a little more money to ensure the safety of the people of America is what he wants to do. He wants to make the right ethical decision versus, oh, let's cut out some of this profit that we could make more money here, but then now the safety of his workers are at stake. And I feel like that's where the ethical decision making that we learned about in class really matched up well with this. Overall, the stuff we learned in class that has matched up well with what I learned in the interview. I think there are differences because every manager and company is different in regards to how they run things and their goals. But the similarities can be applied when looking at the bigger picture and analyzing why they do what they do to run the company. As for a conclusion, after doing this interview, this does match up pretty well to what I thought management was about. A lot of it is not only managing work, but managing the people and their emotions that are doing the work. Management is a spectrum as a whole because everyone has their own ways they like to run things, and also workers have their ways that they like to be managed. It all depends on the company and who the manager is. I don't think my perspective on the role of managers has changed, more just emphasized and made me realize how important those little things and interactions with their employees matters. Really building a connection with who you are managing so it's easier to address things later on. I personally had never really considered a future management role, but this interview did have me thinking about the possibility of doing so in the future. I just saw a lot of his values that matched up with mine and could see myself being successful as a manager. I have lots of leadership experience in my short career so far and can see that translating over to being a good manager if I ever chose to go down the path. Mr. Maybe doesn't work in a career field that I'm in and that I'm considering going into specifically, but I think he did just open my eyes and seeing everyone as a leader in their own ways and putting people in positions to lead and grow. I can apply this to something like basketball, where I, as a captain on the team, should not only just be putting my teammates in positions to succeed, but also putting them in like a position that they're slightly maybe uncomfortable in so they can grow and add to their own personal skill sets so they can become better overall. This will help them lead to more success down the road as well. But overall, I had a great experience with this interview project, and I thought Mr. Maybe was very interesting. I thought he really took time to open up and deliver he answered all my questions in depth, all my follow-up questions. He was a great guy. And I found this project very fun, and I thought it was a great experience to be able to match up what we learned in class to what we learned from an actual manager and see how they compare and contrast. And overall, it was a great project, and I had a great time, and I appreciate Mr. Maybe's time.